What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to go over our top predictions for this week and some important things you need to know heading into the stock market this week. We have some pretty big events going on in the stock market. It was pretty brutal on Friday, but we are set for a volatile week. Tom, what's in store for us?
Yeah, like you said, it's been it was a volatile week last week, and we're actually set to have more volatility this week with these big events going on. So the first big thing that I need to talk about, guys, is the FOMC minutes that's going to come out at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. That is going to be humongous. It's going to highlight exactly what the Feds were talking about at the last FOMC meeting, and it will give us a bigger insight into exactly how the Feds are thinking right now. So that's going to be a huge event. Usually that ends up moving the markets quite a bit alone. And then the very next day, 1 hour before market open, we have the core inflation rate and the inflation rate year over year for September coming out, along with those big CPI numbers. So it's going to be a crazy week, Mike. I know inflation has been the talk of the market over the past year almost. And obviously, we're going to get that data coming in here. It looks like the consensus is at 8.1%. The forecast is at 8.2%. And the previous was 8.3. So it looks like they are forecasting a small drop here. So hopefully it doesn't go higher, or else that could spell some more downwards movement. And we can see that downwards movement really started coming into the SPY on Friday, Mike. We started blasting down below 370 and kind of running down below that support in a huge way.
Yeah, I cannot stress enough how important Thursday will be for the stock market. If that inflation data comes in higher than what everyone was expecting, that can just be disastrous. So keep in mind, Thursday, 1 hour before open, will be like make or break for the stock market. Like Tom said, inflation's been so important over the past year. And Tom, like the stock market's still really close to its lows of the entire year right now. SPY's right around 362, and like a lot of stocks are near lows. So I guess the good thing is if inflation data comes in, a lot lower than what everyone was expecting, that can actually be really good for stocks too.
Yeah, it really could. And looking at the market here, the SPY, like you mentioned, is right around some big supports. Like you said, 362 is a big level, 360 is a big level, and even 358 has held up over the past week or so. So we have to really look at the market this week, Mike, objectively. And with all these big events, it's very easy to try and just guess one way or the other. I know a lot of traders are probably going to be grabbing a lot of puts ahead of some of these events coming up. Just be careful, guys, especially with shorter term expirations. These events are honestly 50-50. They can always go either way. It's kind of like a coin flip here. Hopefully it comes in right at the forecast, though. That way the market isn't being surprised in any way. But yeah, Mike, you're right. A lot of stocks are down around supports like SPY. Even bigger stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and stocks like that are pretty close to recent supports. I know Apple was tanking down last week, heading towards that low down there around 137. And they did start consolidating right around 140, which honestly, 140 has been a pretty big level for Apple over this year as well. So definitely watch the market, because I think we could see a lot more volatility and a lot more upwards price action, especially compared to Friday. I mean, look at this heat map, Mike. This was a bloodbath.
Yeah, while a lot of the bigger stocks are falling, some of these smaller stocks like Tilray and the marijuana stocks have been doing relatively well lately, but they also took a beating on Friday. Tilray is one of like the top stocks I'm watching heading into this week. They just exploded on Thursday when Biden had that new news with the marijuana policy and stuff like that. And then they tanked off a little bit, down around 19% on Friday after they reported earnings. But it's still extremely important to know that these small cap marijuana stocks are like as volatile as you can possibly find. So it's like with that, some days you'll have moves where you're up 30%, down 19%, and then up 40%, and then down another 30%. And it's just like they're very, very volatile. And with that comes opportunity. So I'm really watching Tilray heading into this week. It's a very, very, very risky play. But with that comes some pretty nice potential for reward.
Yeah, exactly. It should have some pretty good movement, Mike. Honestly, Tilray seems pretty good. We do have that nice catalyst going on with Biden and possible, it's not decriminalization, but obviously he's pardoning a lot of people charged with federal possession and stuff like that. So sounds really good for a lot of the marijuana stocks. And of course, Mike, one of my favorite stocks this week is actually going to be SE or C Limited. That stock is looking pretty good. I know it's been pretty hyped up over the past couple of years, but this year, of course, it's been falling off just like every other growth stock has. This stock has highs, Mike, up around 372, and it had lows down here around 54 or $53. So to see us bouncing off of this support here is pretty good. And I think that we could see at least a retest of maybe 64 or even maybe 68 some point this week. I know 68 is a huge resistance, but look at the way it's bouncing off support here. It's actually holding up quite well. And even though the market tanked down Friday in a huge way, SE fell a little bit, but honestly held up quite well compared to most stocks in the market. So I will be watching them, Mike. I think they have a lot of good momentum, and I really love that daily chart here. They are very oversold and starting to actually form a good support, which is nice.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, C Limited is a company based in Singapore that has their hands in a lot of different businesses, mainly internet-based, whether it's digital entertainment, e-commerce, or even like some financial payment processing. Either way, they're a powerhouse company in Singapore. Their stock has been crazy over the past couple of years. And Tom, I'll admit, it is kind of like bottoming out at support. That's at least what it looks like. And, it's definitely been a mover in the past. So it's not a bad setup at all. Another one that I was watching was actually DUK. I talked about this one a little bit last week. It is extremely oversold. They fell so much so quickly, and I'm looking for a bounce similar to their bounces in the past. Tom, can you highlight a couple times on the chart where, we see these giant drops down and then, just like, but it like recovers in like a pretty good way, and it's pretty consistent for the most part. And there's multiple examples throughout this stock's history, and that's what I'm eyeing up for this stock right now. So I feel like it just fell way too much too quickly, and I'm looking for a pop back up for the short term.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like this, Mike. Like you said, a lot of times when this stock falls like this, it does get some pretty good momentum back up. And it's not like the stock falls and then consolidates for 5 months and then starts to come back up either. You can see this consolidation kind of only lasts for a few days, kind of like it did back in February and even back in the middle of June here. That was a big drop from 110 all the way down to 97. And then they recovered all the way back up to 110 within just a few days. So yeah, it can definitely have some crazy movement, Mike. I will say though, DUK has been on quite the downtrend. I cannot believe the past 3 days with how red this one's been, Mike. It's kind of insane, especially while oil stocks and energy stocks are going up. I would have kind of expected this one to follow along, but as we start to approach support, definitely watch for that turnaround because this one does look pretty hot.
Yep. All righty. And then another one I'm watching is GLD. This ETF has been doing pretty good lately. It basically follows gold prices. With the dollar falling, that helps GLD, but the dollar isn't falling too much anymore. We could see right on the chart, it did have a decent recovery over the past couple days. But anyways, gold's performance this year has been very mediocre, especially given the inflation that we've seen. Normally, gold does good during times of inflation, but when you have the dollar running like it is, it kind of hurts that potential run up. Either way, GLD is an ETF that does have some really good moves, but it doesn't move in a way that most other stocks do. GLD is the type of stock that might have like a bunch of like 1% or 2% green days for like weeks or months. So it's like it moves in kind of an unusual way, but it does move quite a bit though. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I feel like, Mike, you can get some pretty good swings going on with GLD with options and stuff like that. Like I know that GLD doesn't have the biggest moves, but whenever it's moving up, $1 or $2 a day, sometimes those options can start to move quite a bit. So you guys can definitely take advantage of that with GLD. I think that could end up being pretty good, especially like you said, Mike, with inflation starting to go crazy. And what I will also point out, Mike, is at the beginning of the year with GLD, it was actually flying up as Russia was having all that crazy news going on in Ukraine. I've been starting to see a bit of an uptick as far as the news in Ukraine and all the war and everything like that. So maybe we'll start to see gold have an uptick with that news too. But my last stock to talk about, Mike, is actually AAL. It's a pretty good stock in my opinion. It's down a lot. We're almost back down to those COVID lows. So be careful. I feel like this one could continue on a short-term downtrend. They are in a very volatile market, being the airline sector. And with inflation being higher, I'm kind of curious if that's going to hurt travel or not. So I cannot wait for their next earnings to come out either sometime soon. But seriously, watch AAL. I feel like it'll be a good stock to average into sometime soon. And if the market does start popping up, this one does get some pretty good upwards movement. But obviously right now, Mike, the whole market on Friday started tanking back down. So hopefully, we start to see that recovery, but I'm not too optimistic about it in the short term, at least until that inflation data comes out.
Gotcha. So I feel like it's also definitely worth another stock that's definitely worth covering is Meta. We've talked about this stock quite a bit over the past year. They are trading at an amazing, amazing valuation, in my opinion. And they actually have some pretty big news coming up this week. So fill us in.
Yeah, October 11th is going to be huge, and Meta made new yearly lows on Friday. So if you guys are looking to get into a stock at good levels, Meta is definitely at its low of year and looking very, very hot, at least as far as price goes. But they are going to have this huge event coming up October 11th, and it's called Connect. So it sounds pretty cool, Mike. They're going to be going over a lot of different stuff with their headsets. I saw a great paragraph explaining what you should expect here. They're saying Zuckerberg will open the event with a keynote featuring a number of developers, creators, and leaders at Meta. He'll share updates on the VR developer system, progress building towards the metaverse, and Project Cambria, their new high-end VR headset with mixed reality. I cannot wait for Cambria, Mike. I really think that that'll be an interesting thing when it comes out. I've seen a lot of videos of Zuckerberg, like this one here, of him fencing and stuff like this. It's a very interesting thing. I know you can kind of already do this on some of the VR headsets, but it's going to be really cool to maybe see some of the technological advancements, whether it's better resolutions or, a higher frame rate or whatever it is. There's going to be a lot of stuff that they're going to talk about here, Mike. So keep this on your horizons. It'll be Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time for anybody wondering, but October 11th, Tuesday morning, definitely watch Meta's stock, Mike. It's at yearly lows, so hopefully we can get a nice turnaround here, but Zuckerberg has some work to do. There is definitely a lot of negative sentiment right now.
Very true. Everyone says the metaverse is the future. Facebook straight up changed their name to Meta Platform. So it's like they're definitely investing pretty heavily into the metaverse, not only in that sense, but also monetarily. They're investing tens of billions of dollars into the metaverse. They're really trying to become the leader for the future with virtual reality, mixed reality, all that cool stuff. So I'm very excited. It looks like Meta has spent as much as $10 billion a year on Zuckerberg's reality hardwares, or I'm sorry, $10 billion a year on Zuckerberg's vision of creating the next major software platform. So either way, Meta, they're also a cash cow. They do very, very well financially, and the stock is just selling off at like a relentless pace. Tom, what was the all-time high for Meta, and where is it at now?
Oh my gosh, the all-time high was all the way up around 384 to 385, and now we're trading at 133.45, right below that COVID low. So definitely getting lower compared to that high, Mike. I cannot believe how low it is, but what I will say is a lot of growth stocks are like this, but with Meta being so good on the books, like you keep mentioning, Mike, I would expect them to hold up a little bit better.
Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, Tom, I know we also have a decent week in terms of earnings. So what's on the schedule?
Yeah, decent week. As far as once we get to Wednesday, we'll start to see some pretty big ones starting to report, kind of like Pepsi before market open. Thursday, we're going to have Taiwan Semiconductors, Delta, BlackRock, Domino's Pizza or DPZ on the ticker, Walgreens or WBA will also be reporting Thursday. So honestly, Mike, Thursday is a pretty big day in its own right, but it's nothing compared to Friday. We're going to have JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, US Bank Corp. And then we also have United Health Group mixed in and even PNC. So we even have that healthcare stock, Mike. I know or United Health is pretty big too, but those banks are going to be extremely important to watch. And I cannot wait to see some of the numbers coming from JP Morgan, even PNC, Mike. But really, I know banks have been impacted by rates going up quite a bit. A lot of people were saying in the beginning of this year that rates going up would help banks. Obviously, in the short term, it hasn't helped their stocks too much. So I can't wait to see what they report with earnings, Mike. And honestly, for me, it's not really about the numbers with earnings. I just can't wait to see their outlook. And I'm hoping that they still report some good lending numbers. I'm really hoping that overall people don't obviously quit lending with rates being so high. And I'm sure we're going to see some type of slowdown.
With mortgages at 7% nowadays, I'd hope that they're reporting some good numbers. So we'll see. It's been a crazy year for many industries. Inflation has definitely taken its toll, and hopefully that's peaking out. So we will see, though. It's been a crazy year. But Tom, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have DraftKings to the upside.
DraftKings, nice. Yeah, this one had some really good news last week with Disney, but go ahead and make them break out above $17 even. That is a huge resistance.
And with the next one, we have Baba also. No, actually, Baba to the downside. Sorry.
Yeah, to the downside. Go ahead and make them break down below 80.75.
Perfect. Now with the next one, we have Apple, and we need both levels for this one.
Yeah, so Apple did fall down a lot on Friday, and they're sitting really right close to the 140 support. They're actually right on it. But if they fall to the downside, make them break below 139.50. That is a big support from the end of day Friday. And if they start to run up above 141, look at calls. And guys, if we see it start to run up and break 141, it would be awesome to kind of fill some of that bad move that we had Friday back up. Maybe like 142.50 or even 143. So definitely watch for those scalps on Apple. I think that one's setting up pretty well.
Perfect. So Apple has potential plays to the upside and the downside. Baba has potential plays to the downside, and DraftKings has potential plays to the upside. But these are only potential setups if they break the levels Tom listed. Before we move on, I want to give a giant shout out to today's Discord member of the day, LM Fan. Definitely keep up your activity in the chat. It's awesome to have you in there. I know you're still relatively new, but thank you so much for being a great member of the StockedUp community. Definitely keep up that activity. But Tom, do you have any favorite setups heading into the volatile week?
Yeah, Mike, there's actually a few pretty good setups in my opinion, but unfortunately, most of them are all to the downside. So what I will say, guys, is really watch some of these ETFs this week, like SPXS, UVXY, and stocks like that. With stocks being right around lows, if we end up breaking below some key supports and continuing to run down, we might see SPXS start to seriously fly up. So if the market does go down, I would probably gravitate towards some of those ETFs, Mike. But if the market does start to bounce and we start to see a recovery, I will start to look at stocks like Meta, like we talked about. That'll be big coming up into this event. And I'm also going to be eyeing up some retailers like Costco, Walmart, stocks like that. They've been actually going down quite a bit in the short term, which is a little bit scary heading into the holiday season. Like Costco here is turning over pretty hard, getting close to support. Same thing with Walmart, turning over hard, kind of testing support on Friday. Honestly, I could see these going a little bit lower, but just keep them on the radar. Like I keep saying, Mike, unfortunately, I kind of am leaning to the downside this week, but I will say a lot of stocks are starting to near support. So hopefully that turns around for us. But there's just been so much negative price action lately, negative sentiment coming in the market. And with the way we sold off Friday morning, I thought that was pretty worrisome in my eyes, especially running into these big events this week with inflation.
Yeah, I think that inflation data on Thursday is going to make or break it. I really do. And, yeah, we're going to see some volatile movement before that data, but, inflation's been so important all year long, and it's expected to continue lower. But, ideally, we really want the realized inflation data to be lower than what the market is expecting, because that'll just be a great sign that no one was foreseeing. So we'll see what happens, but inflation data will be extremely important on Thursday. If you guys like the video, make sure to subscribe and you'll see our videos more often. Besides that, let's have an amazing week.